In the quiet dark of the outer rim floated a ship no bigger than a city bus, its metal skin scarred by micrometeorites, and time inside sat a lone human woman named Claire, her fingers tapping softly on the armrest of her chair. The ship hummed a low, steady note like a lullaby for the lost. She had been drifting for 17 months since the solar flare swallowed Earth whole. No warning, no goodbyes, just fire and silence. After that she ran on hope and recycled air. Her only companion, a small bot named Pip that chirped when it found edible algae in the vents. Claire was not a soldier or a scientist. She had been a gardener once tending rooftop greens in New Chicago. She knew soil better than stars, but when the world burned she took the only ship she could steal and flew toward the rumors. Rumors of a place where aliens took in strays, the Zenthari. They called themselves elegant tall beings who lived in crystal cities and valued harmony above all else. Claire did not expect kindness, but she hoped for mercy. Her ship sputtered as it neared the Varelian orbit, the engine coughing like an old dog. She sent the standard distress signal in 3 languages and waited. The stars outside her window seemed to hold their breath. Then a voice came through the comm, smooth and cool like water over glass. Identify yourself, human. Claire gave her name, her origin, her reason. She kept it simple. No lies, no drama, just truth. The voice paused, then said, "You will be escorted. Do not deviate." From the path a Zenthari vessel appeared sleek and silent as a thought. It guided her to a docking bay, carved into the side of a floating island of crystal. The city of Viralia rose above her towers, spiraling toward a dying red sun. The air smelled of ozone and something sweet like crushed petals. Claire stepped out in her patched flight suit. Her boots clicking on the smooth floor, she felt small and rough among the Zenthari. Their skin shimmered like mother of pearl. Their eyes large and dark. With no visible pupils, they moved with 4 arms in perfect rhythm like dancers in a silent ballet. Female Zenthari approached taller than the rest, her robes edged in silver. She introduced herself as Elder Nira, the liaison to off-world guests. "You will stay in Sector 9, she said, her voice calm but distant. "Your needs will be met. Do not wander beyond your zone. Do not speak to citizens unless spoken to. Do not approach the Royal Spire." Claire nodded. "Thank you," she said. Nira tilted her head. Slightly humans are loud even when they whisper. That night Claire lay on a soft mat in her assigned room. The walls glowed faintly with shifting patterns. She missed the smell of rain, the weight of real dirt under her nails. Pip rolled in circles. On the floor scanning for dust mites to eat, she stared at the ceiling and wondered if she would ever plant seeds again. The next morning she was given a task. The Zenthari needed help in the lower gardens. Their native flora was failing, and their bots could not understand the delicate balance of root and light. Claire smiled for the first time in months, this she knew. The gardens were vast domes filled with plants that pulsed with soft light, some with leaves like spun glass, others with vines that hummed when touched. Claire knelt in the soil. Her hands moving with old instinct, she pruned dead stems watered with care, spoke softly to the green things as she had done on Earth. The Zenthari watched from a distance, their faces unreadable. But they did not stop. Her days turned into weeks. Claire learned the rhythm of Viralia, the way the light changed with the twin moons, the sound of the wind through crystal spires. She kept to her zone. But every evening after work, she walked the outer path that circled the lower city. It gave her a view of the upper levels where the elite lived, and there in the highest dome, she sometimes saw a shadow, a small figure standing very still, watching the stars. She asked Nira about it once. "Who lives up there?" Nira's expression did not change. "That is not your concern." But Claire noticed how the elder's arms tightened slightly, how her voice dropped half a tone the next day. Claire left a small gift on a stone ledge near the path. A wooden bird she had carved from scrap wood. It had one wing slightly shorter than the other. She did not know why she left it, only that it felt right. The next evening the bird was gone. In its place sat a smooth black stone veined with silver. Claire picked it up. It was warm. She began leaving gifts regularly. A pressed flower from the garden, a coil of copper wire shaped like a spiral, a tiny cup made from a nutshell. Each time something returned, a feather, a shard of colored glass, a dried petal folded into a heart. She never saw who left them, but she felt a presence like a breath on the edge of hearing and dusk as she placed a glass bead on the ledge. A whisper came from behind her. "You make broken things beautiful." Claire turned slowly, her heart knocking against her ribs. A young Zenthari woman stood there, wrapped in a silver shawl, her skin pale even for her kind. Her left sleeve pinned neatly above the elbow, her eyes wide and dark like deep water. "I am Lyra," she whispered. Claire did not move. "You are the one in the dome," Lyra nodded. "I watch you every night. You walk like you are searching." She said, "I found you instead." Lyra's lips trembled slightly. "No one comes near me." "Why? Because I am flawed." Claire looked at her shortened arm. Then, back at her eyes, "You are not flawed, you are different, and difference is not bad." Lyra blinked slowly. Tears like liquid pearl gathered at the corners of her eyes. No Zenthari has ever said that they met after that, always at dusk, always in the same spot. Lyra spoke in whispers, but her words were sharp and clever. She knew poetry and star charts and the secret names of flowers. Claire told her of earth, of oceans that roared and forests that whispered back, of people who loved crooked smiles and mismatched socks. "You humans are strange," Lyra said one night. "We are just people." Claire replied, "Like you, not like me." Lyra looked down at her arm. "The council says I bring imbalance to the bloodline. I am not allowed to bond. I am not allowed to rule. I am not allowed to be seen." Claire reached out slowly and touched Lyra's hand. The 3 fingers curled around hers felt cool and strong. "You are seen by me." Lyra's breath caught, and for the first time she did not pull away. Weeks passed their secret. Meetings became the center of Claire's world. She learned that Lyra was the youngest daughter of the High Matriarch, hidden away since birth. Because of her defect, the Zenthari believed perfection was sacred. Any flaw was a sign of cosmic error. Lyra had never walked in the city, never spoken in public, never been touched except by servants who avoided her gaze. But Claire touched her, often a hand on her shoulder, a brush of fingers when passing a gift. She treated Lyra not as a princess, nor as a broken thing, but as a person. The annual bonding ceremony drew near, a grand event, where Zenthari pairs would link minds and hearts in a ritual of light and resonance. Only the worthy were invited. Lyra would be locked in her chamber as always. But this year something stirred in the city. The humans had stayed longer than expected, and they had helped the Zenthari in ways no one predicted. They fixed broken systems, shared medical knowledge, taught children to draw with messy, joyful lines. The elders whispered that chaos had its uses. Still, no one spoke of Lyra until the night before the ceremony. Claire could not sleep. She paced her room, Pip whirring anxiously at her heels. She thought of Lyra alone in her tower while the city celebrated. Below, she thought of all the times Lyra had said, "I do not matter." She made a decision. At dawn, she walked to the grand hall, her boots echoing in the empty corridor. Zenthari guards tried to stop her, but she spoke firmly. "I request an audience with the High Matriarch." They hesitated, then let her pass. The hall was vast, its ceiling open to the red sky. The matriarch sat on a throne of woven light, her presence heavy as stone. Claire stood before her and bowed slightly. "I ask to bond with Lyra, daughter of Aurelia." The matriarch did not move for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice like cracking ice. "You do not understand our ways. Human bonding is not a promise. It is a merging of soul essence, a lifetime of shared thought and feeling. It is not given lightly." "I understand," Claire said, "and I choose her." Laughter rippled through the gathered elders. But before the matriarch could respond, a whisper came from the doorway. "I accept." All turned. Lyra stood there, her shawl slipping from her shoulders, her head high, her eyes fixed on Claire. The matriarch studied them both, then nodded. "If the ritual accepts you, so shall we." That night under the twin moons, the city gathered in the Resonance Plaza, the air thick with tension. Lyra and Claire stood on the central stone, barefoot Claire in a simple white tunic, Lyra in a gown that shimmered like starlight. The high priest began the chant. Light rose from the stone, wrapping around them in spirals, but the light flickered unevenly. Gasps rose through the crowd. The ritual was failing. It rejected imbalance. Claire looked at Lyra, saw the fear in her eyes, and without thinking, she reached out and took her hand. The 3-fingered hand, the scarred hand, the hand everyone avoided. "I see you," she whispered. And the light changed. It did not become smooth or perfect instead. It twisted into something new. Jagged, bright, alive. It wrapped around them, not hiding Lyra's difference, but weaving it into the pattern. The resonance deepened, not with uniformity, but with truth. When the light faded, they stood linked not by perfection but by choice. The crowd was silent. Then one by one, the Zenthari bowed. After that, Lyra walked the streets, no longer hidden. Children waved at her. Claire taught in the gardens, and the lower sectors bloomed with color. The matriarch called them a new kind of harmony. And in the quiet of their shared chamber, Lyra rested her head on Claire's shoulder. Her whisper soft, but sure. You made me real. Months passed, and the city of Virelia changed not all at once, but like a river shifting its course. The Zenthari began to speak of balance instead of perfection. They planted gardens with uneven rows. They allowed children to draw with crooked lines. They even started repairing broken crystal spires instead of replacing them with flawless ones. Claire and Lyra walked the streets together, hand in hand, no longer hidden. No longer ashamed, Lyra wore her short sleeve openly. And when strangers stared, she met their eyes without flinching. But peace is never still far beyond the galactic rim. A new threat stirred the Krell, a warlike species with armored hides and no concept of mercy. They consumed worlds not for resources, but for sport. Their fleet moved like a shadow across the stars, swallowing light as it went. The first warning came from a dying scout ship, its last message crackling through Virelia's comms. They are coming. The Zenthari Council gathered in panic. Their crystal city was beautiful but not built for war. Their weapons were ceremonial, their defenses outdated. They had lived so long in harmony they forgot how to fight. Claire stood at the edge of the council chamber, not invited, but not turned away. She listened as the elders argued. Some said flee, others said surrender. A few whispered of hiding Lyra again, as if her presence had brought this. Doom. Lyra stepped forward, her voice still a whisper but clear as glass. We do not hide, we prepare. The matriarch looked at her daughter, then at Claire. What would a human know of war? Claire met her gaze. I know loss. I know how to survive. I know that running only delays the end. The council fell silent. That night, Claire walked the lower sectors with Pip rolling beside her. The city felt tense, like a bowstring pulled too tight. She visited the repair bays, the food stores, the water recyclers. She saw what the Zenthari could not see. Their strength was not in weapons but in connection. Every tower, every spire, every garden was linked by a network of light and sound, a living web. She returned to the council with a plan, not to fight the Krell head-on, but to confuse them, to use the city itself as a shield. The Zenthari listened. They began to work the humans among them, taught them to rig old power cells into pulse charges. The Zenthari wove sonic traps into the air currents. They turned their gardens into camouflage fields, hiding entrances with living vines. Claire showed them how to make decoys from scrap, metal and light projectors. Lyra coordinated the effort. Her mind sharp, her whispers now commands. The Krell arrived faster than expected. Their ships black and jagged like broken teeth. They did not hail. They did not warn, they fired. The first blast struck the outer ring of Virelia, shattering a spire. But the Zenthari were ready. The light network flared, blinding the enemy sensors. The sonic traps disoriented their landing troops. The decoys drew fire while real fighters moved unseen through hidden tunnels. Claire was on the front line, not with a gun but with tools. She rerouted power-restored shields, patched hull breaches with quick seal foam. She moved fast, her hands sure, her mind calm. Lyra stayed near her, not as a princess but as a partner, directing teams with quiet precision. In the chaos, a Krell warrior broke through the lower gate. Tall and armored, it roared as it charged toward the central garden where children were hiding. Claire saw it first. She had no weapon, only a wrench in her hand. She ran not away but toward it, shouting to draw its attention. Lyra screamed her name. The Krell swung a spiked arm. Claire ducked, rolled, came up swinging the wrench hard against a joint in its armor. It hissed in pain but kept coming. She knew she would not survive another hit. Then light exploded. Lyra stood at the garden gate, her arms raised, not in fear but in focus. The city answered her. The crystal walls flared blinding white. The ground beneath the Krell cracked open, releasing A burst of sonic energy. The creature staggered, fell, and did not rise. Silence fell over the sector. Claire stood breathing hard, her hands shaking. Lyra ran to her, pulling her into a tight embrace. "You fool, you brave, foolish human. You saved me," Claire whispered. "No," Lyra said, "you gave me the courage to try." The battle raged for 3 days. The Krell pressed hard, but Varelia held, not through strength alone, but through cleverness. Through unity, through the strange bond between a human and a once-hidden princess. The final push came when Claire suggested overloading the city's core, not to destroy it, but to send a pulse through the Krell fleet, disrupting their systems. It was risky. It could shatter Varelia forever. The matriarch looked at Lyra, then at Claire. "Do it." They worked through the night, Claire rerouting cables, Lyra channeling the city's resonance into a single frequency. At dawn, they stood at the core chamber, hands clasped. "Ready?" Lyra asked. "Always," Claire replied. They triggered. The pulse light erupted, not outward but inward, folding around the Krell ships like a net. Their engines sputtered. Their weapons died. Their comms went silent. One by one, the black ships drifted powerless. The Xanthari cheered, but Claire and Lyra did not celebrate. They knew the Krell would return stronger, angrier. In the aftermath, the council met again. This time they did not sit in judgment. They sat in gratitude. The matriarch rose and spoke to all gathered. "We believed perfection was safety. We were wrong. Safety is indifference and courage and love." She turned to Claire. "You came as a stranger. You stayed as a shield. You are no longer guest. You are kin." Lyra took Claire's hand before the crowd and said what she had only whispered in the dark. "I choose you not just for bonding, but for life." The people bowed, not to royalty, but to truth. Weeks later, the city began to heal. Cracks in the towers were filled with gold resin. Not to hide them, but to honor them. The gardens bloomed with new hybrids. Half Xanthari, half earth seeds. Claire planted them herself. Her hands in the soil again. But peace is never still. Message came from deep space. Not from the Krell, but from another human ship. The Wanderer had not been alone. Others had escaped Earth. Scattered across the stars, this ship carried survivors, 200 men. Women and children, sick and starving. They had heard of Varelia. They had heard of Claire. The council debated again. Fear flickered in their eyes. More humans. More chaos. More risk. Lyra spoke first. "We were once strangers too," Claire added. "They are my people." The matriarch looked at them both, then nodded. "Let them come." The new humans arrived in a battered freighter. Its hull patched with hope. They stepped onto Varelian soil, weak but wide-eyed. Claire greeted them not as a savior, but as a sister. She showed them the gardens, the water systems, the quiet corners where one could cry without shame. Lyra helped translate. Taught them the Xanthari ways, showed them how to listen. To the cities, whom among the newcomers was a girl named Maya. Only 8 years old, she had lost her parents in the flare. She clung to Claire's sleeve, her eyes full of ghosts. That night, Claire sat with her on the ledge where it all began, the same spot where she had left the first wooden bird. Maya leaned against her, small and warm. "Is this home now?" she asked. Claire looked at Lyra, who stood nearby, watching the stars with quiet joy. "Yes," she said. "This is home." Days turned into a new rhythm. Claire taught the humans to work with the Xanthari, not above them, not below them, together. They built new shelters using both earth wood and Xanthari crystal. They shared stories, songs, recipes. Lyra learned to laugh louder, her whispers now sometimes rising. To soft words, Maya followed her like a shadow, calling her Aunt Lyra. But the Krell loomed in everyone's mind. Scouts reported movement at the edge of known space. The enemy was regrouping, building new ships with stolen tech. They would not be fooled. Twice Claire knew they could not wait to be attacked again. They had to act. She proposed a bold plan, not to hide, not to defend, but to reach out to other species. The Krell had enemies scattered across the galaxy. If Varelia could unite them even briefly, they might stand a chance. The council was wary. Alliances meant trust, and trust was fragile. Lyra stood beside Claire in the chamber. "We do not ask for armies," she said. "We ask for warning, for shared eyes in the dark, for a chance to prepare." Together, the matriarch agreed. A new ship was prepared, not a warship, but a messenger vessel, sleek and fast-built with human ingenuity and Xanthari light. Tech. Claire would captain it. Lyra would go with her. They would carry hope, not weapons. The night Before departure, Maya gave Claire a drawing, a messy sketch of 3 figures holding hands under 2 moons. Lyra packed seeds from the new garden, earth wheat and Varelian star blossom. Claire checked the engines one last time. As they lifted off, the city glowed below, not perfect, not untouched, but alive in the quiet of space. Lyra sat beside Claire, her head on her shoulder. The stars stretched endless before them. "Where do we go first?" Claire asked. "Wherever someone is listening." Lyra whispered. They flew not toward war, but toward connection, toward the fragile, beautiful idea that difference could be strength, that broken things could hold the world together. And far behind them, on a crystal world, children played in gardens where crooked rose grew the sweetest fruit, and elders told stories of the human who loved a princess and taught a city how to see. The ship drifted into the dark, its lights small but steady, like a heartbeat in the void, like a whisper that refused to be silenced, like hope that would not die. They would find others, they would warn them, they would build something new, not an empire, not a fortress, but a web of care woven from many hands, many voices, many kinds of love. And if the Krell came again, they would not face them alone, because now they knew the greatest weapon was not fire or steel, but the courage to stand together even when you are different, even when you are afraid, even when the world says you do not belong. The jump left them breathless. The fleet emerged near a dead star, its light long gone, but its gravity still strong. The Arathi homeworld hung in the void, a sphere of black stone veined with silver. It pulsed like a slow heartbeat. The comms crackled. With static, then a voice ancient and deep spoke not in words, but in feeling. It washed over them like tide. "You have come." Claire gripped the console. Her knuckles white. Lyra placed a hand on her arm, steady. The Arathi ships appeared not from warp, but from the shadows themselves, sleek and silent, shaped like crescent moons. They circled the fleet, not threatening, but watching. Elena's voice came through the comm. "Do we respond?" "Wait," Claire said. The Arathi voice returned, this time clearer. "You carry." The Sparklyra stepped forward and spoke in the old tongue of resonance, a language of light and tone. The Arathi understood. She showed them the shield design, the Krell attacks, the web of worlds they had built. Silence. Then the largest Arathi ship opened a bay, not for weapons, but for guests. Claire and Lyra took a shuttle alone. Maya wanted to come, but Claire shook her head. "This is not for children." The Arathi interior was warm, not with heat, but with presence. Walls shifted like liquid stone, floors hummed underfoot. No Arathi appeared until they reached the center chamber. There stood a being tall and slender, its skin like polished obsidian, eyes glowing soft gold. It did not speak aloud. It sent thoughts directly into their minds. "You are not what we expected," Claire answered with her voice. "I am human. She is Zenthari. We are not warriors. You are something rarer." The Orathi replied. "You are bridge builders." They showed them the weapon. Not a bomb, not a beam, but a song. A frequency that could unravel the Krell hive mind. If broadcast from the heart of their fleet, it would not kill, but free the minds the Krell enslaved, to fuel their rage. But to reach that heart, one ship must fly deep into their lines and survive long enough to transmit. "Who would do such a thing?" "We will," Claire said. No, Lyra whispered. The Orathi studied them. "You are bonded. Your minds are linked. If one dies, the other feels it deeply." "That is why we go together," Claire said. "If we fall as one." The Orathi bowed its head. "So be it." They returned to the fleet with the song encoded in a crystal. The Arathi gave them a ship too small for battle, but fast, almost invisible. It drank light instead of fuel. They named it the Whisperback. On Varelia, the matriarch argued against it. Dana cursed. Elena cried, but no one could stop them. They had started this. They would finish it. Maya gave them a small pouch of seeds for luck. The fleet moved toward the Krell gathering point, a shattered system where planets floated. In pieces, the Krell had built a command spire from the bones of dead worlds. It pulsed with stolen life. The plan was simple. The main fleet would attack, drawing fire. The Whisper would slip through the chaos and reach the spire. As they launched, Claire felt calm. Lyra held her hand, their bond humming like a second heartbeat. The battle began. Fire lit the dark. Krell ships swarmed like angry wasps. The Zenthari used light lances, the humans fired pulse rounds, the Sylvari darted in and out like sparks. The Orthi sang their own songs, disrupting Krell commands. The whisper dove alarms blared inside the tiny ship. Shields flickered, hull groaned, but they did not stop. They weaved through debris, through explosions, through dying ships. They saw things. No one should see worlds burning, minds screaming, but they kept going, almost there. Claire said, then a Krell hunter locked on them. Lyra did not flinch. She sent a pulse through the ship, not of force but of resonance. It mimicked the Krell command frequency. For a heartbeat the hunter hesitated. That was all they needed. They crashed into the spire, not gently but with purpose. The whisper broke apart on impact. Claire and Lyra tumbled into a corridor of black metal, the air thick with static and paint. Vanguards came fast, armored and silent. Lyra used her resonance to shatter their visors. Claire used a plasma cutter to melt locks. They moved as one mind, one will at the core. They founded a sphere of writhing energy, stolen minds trapped in endless rage. Claire plugged the crystal into the console. The song began to play, soft at first, then louder. The Krell commander appeared, huge and scarred. It roared and charged. Lyra stepped in front of Claire, arms wide. No, she said, and she did not attack. She reached out. The commander froze. Its eyes flickered, not with rage but with confusion. A memory surfaced, a world green and wet. A child's laugh before the Krell took it. The song grew. The commander dropped to its knees, tears black, as oil rolled down. Its face, the spire, trembled. Claire held Lyra as the song spread through the Krell fleet, not as a weapon but as a key unlocking. Minds long buried. Outside, the battle stopped. Krell ships powered down, their weapons went silent. Their crews stood confused. Some wept. Some fled. Some simply sat in the dark, remembering who they had been before the hive took them. The spire collapsed. Claire and Lyra ran as the corridors crumbled behind them. They reached the edge just as the Orathi ship appeared, catching them in a beam of silver light. They woke on the Orathi vessel. The fleet gathered around them, quiet, not cheering, not crying, just present. It was done. Weeks later they returned to Viralia, not as heroes but as homecomers. The city had grown new towers, not of crystal but of mixed stone and wood. Humans and Xanthari worked side by side. Maya ran to them, her arms full of flowers she had grown from the seeds they gave her. The matriarch met them at the garden where it all began. She did not speak of victory, she spoke of healing. The Krell were not gone, but broken into scattered groups. Some sought forgiveness. Some vanished into the rim. Some joined the web, offering knowledge. In exchange for peace, Claire and Lyra walked the paths they once walked. In secret, now open to all, they stopped at the ledge where the first gift had been left. A new wooden bird sat there, carved by Maya. One wing slightly shorter than the other. Lyra picked it up and smiled. They built a school there later. Not for warriors, but for bridge builders. Children of all species learned to listen to differences, to mend what was torn, to plant seeds in broken ground. Claire taught them about soil. Lyra taught them about light. Together they showed them that strength was not in being flawless but in being true. One evening as the twin moons rose, Claire sat with Lyra on the ledge, Maya asleep against her shoulder. The city hummed below. Not perfect, not silent, but alive. Do you think they will remember us? Lyra asked. Not as saviors, Claire said, but as reminders that even the smallest whisper can change the world. And in the quiet dark, the stars listened, not as distant lights, but as witnesses to a truth as old as time. Love is not about fixing someone. It is about seeing them and saying, I am here with you. The end. The messenger ship sailed through the void, its hull humming with quiet energy. Claire sat at the controls, her eyes scanning the star maps, Lyra beside her tracing routes, with a finger that left faint trails of light on the screen. They had been traveling for weeks, visiting outposts and fringe colonies. Most were wary. Some hostile, a few curious. None had heard of the Krell, but all knew fear. At a mining station orbiting a dead moon, they met a grizzled human named Dana who ran a salvage yard. With 3 cybernetic arms and a heart full of old grief, she listened to Claire's warning, then nodded slowly. I've seen ships like you describe black, jagged things. They took my brother's colony. No survivors, just ash and silence. Dana gave them coordinates, a hidden relay point where smugglers and scouts traded news. She also gave them a data chip sealed in wax. Do not open it, unless you are sure you are safe. They flew on. At a floating market run by the silvery insectoid traders with iridescent wings and clicking voices, Lyra used her royal seal to gain an audience. The Silvari did not care for politics, but they cared for survival. They agreed to spread the word through their hive networks in exchange for Varelian resonance. Crystals, which they used to calm their youngage stop, added a thread to the web they were weaving. Not an army, but a warning system, a chance for others to prepare to hide to fight back. One night, as the ship drifted near a nebula painted in violet and gold, Lyra woke from a nightmare. Her breath quick, her skin cold. Claire held her until the shaking stopped. "What did you see?" Claire asked. "The city burning," she whispered. "And you were gone." Claire kissed her forehead. "I am here." But the dream lingered. Like smoke days later, the ship's sensors pinged a distress signal, weak and broken. They followed it to a derelict freighter tumbling in the dark, its hull torn open by weapons fire. They docked carefully. Claire in a suit, Lyra monitoring from the bridge inside the freighter was silence and blood frozen in droplets. Claire moved through the corridors, her light cutting through the gloom. She found the cockpit. The pilot slumped over the controls dead, but the logs were intact. She pulled the data core and returned back on their ship. Lyra decrypted the files. The freighter had been carrying refugees from a world called Helios Prime. The Krell had found them early. They came not just with ships, but with something new, a weapon that drained energy not just from machines but from living things. It left bodies empty husks with no wounds, no pain. Just gone, Claire felt sick. This changed everything. They opened Dana's data chip. It contained schematics not for a weapon, but for a shield. A harmonic barrier that disrupted the Krell energy drain. It was incomplete, but it was a start. "We must get this to Varelia," Claire said. But returning would take weeks, and the Krell were moving faster. Lyra studied the schematics, her mind working like a loom weaving possibilities. What if we do not go back? What if we build it here? Here, Claire looked around the small ship. Not here. Lyra pointed to a signal on the map, a research outpost on the ice moon of Kael. It was abandoned, but its power core was still active and it had a fabrication bay. They changed course. The ice moon was white and silent, wind howling across glaciers that glittered like shattered glass. The outpost stood half buried in snow. Its dome, cracked but intact inside the air, was stale, but the systems responded to Lyra's Zentheri codes. The power core hummed to life, lights flickered on for 10 days. They worked without rest. Claire rewiring circuits. Lyra programming resonance frequencies. They used parts from their ship. From the derelict, from Dana's schematics. They argued, they laughed, they cried when a test failed. They held each other when hope felt thin on. The 11th day they activated the prototype. A dome of soft blue light rose from the outpost, humming at a frequency that made the ice vibrate. The test drone they sent into it came out unharmed even when they simulated a Krell energy pulse. "It works," Claire breathed. "But it is small." Lyra said, "We need to scale it." They sent the design to Varelia, encrypted and urgent. They also broadcast it on open channels, hoping others would use it. Then the sensors screamed. 3 Krell ships dropped out of warp, black and hungry. They had tracked the signal. Claire's heart pounded. "We cannot fight them. We do not have." Lyra said, "Activate the shield at full power." They did. The blue dome expanded, swallowing the outpost and part of the glacier. The Krell fired their energy weapon, but the pulse shattered against the shield like glass on stone. The Krell circled, confused, their systems glitching from the harmonic interference. Now Lyra said, "Send the final broadcast." Claire tapped the console, the complete shield design. The Krell tactics. The warning, all of it shot into the void on every frequency. The lead Krell ship turned its weapons not on the shield but on the moon's core. They were going to collapse it, bury the outpost under 1,000 tons of ice. "We have to go," Claire said. But Lyra stared at the console, her eyes wide. "The shield can be reversed. What if we invert the frequency? It will not protect, it will disrupt their ships from the inside. It could kill them, it could save thousands." Claire looked at her, then at the approaching destruction. She nodded. "Do it." Lyra's fingers flew over the controls. The hum of the shield deepened, changed from calm to sharp like a scream. The Krell ships shuddered, their armor cracking, their engines flaring red, then white, then dark, one by one. They fell from the sky, crashing into the ice, silent and still silence. Returned. They stood in the outpost, breathing hard. The shield flickered out. "We did it," Claire said for now. Lyra replied, "But they will learn. They will adapt." They salvaged what they could, repaired their ship, and left the ice moon behind as they rose. Into orbit, Claire saw something on the scanner, a small ship approaching. Not Krell, not Zenthari Human, it hailed them. "This is Captain Elena of the Wayfarer. We received your broadcast. Thank you." More voices followed, a Silvari scout, a mining guild, colony ship, all saying the same thing. "We heard you, we are ready." Tears filled Claire's eyes. They flew on. Not as fugitives, not as soldiers, but as messengers of a new kind of strength, the kind that comes from sharing, not hoarding, from warning, not hiding, from building, not breaking. Weeks later, they returned to Virelia. The city had changed again. Towers now bore scars of battle filled with gold and light. The gardens grew food, not just beauty. Children trained in defense, but also in healing. The matriarch met them at the dock. Her face softer than before. "You brought more than a shield," she said. "You brought hope." Maya ran to them, her hair longer, her smile brighter. She hugged Claire, then Lyra. "I missed you." "We missed you too," Claire said. That night they stood on the ledge where it all began. The same spot where a wooden bird had started everything. The stars above were the same, but the world below was new. Lyra leaned into Claire's side, her voice barely a whisper. "Do you think it will be enough?" Claire looked at the city, at the lights, at the people moving together, not in perfect lines, but in messy, beautiful patterns. "No," she said. "But it is a start. And sometimes a start is all you need." The next morning a new signal came, not from the rim, but from the core, a species long thought silent. The Orathi, ancient and wise, they had watched the Krell for centuries. They had a weapon older than stars. They asked only one thing: "Meet us." Claire and Lyra looked at each other. "We go," Claire said, but this time they would not go alone. The matriarch offered a Zenthari escort. Dana sent a crew of salvagers. Elena's ship joined the fleet. Even the Silvari sent a wing of scouts. The humans from the freighter stood ready. Their fear turned to purpose. They gathered in orbit, a ragged fleet of mismatched ships held together not by uniformity, but by choice, as they prepared to jump to the core. Claire stood on the bridge of their ship, Lyra beside her, Maya behind them holding a small plant. In a pot, earth, soil, and Virelian roots twined together. "What is it?" Maya asked. "A promise," Claire said, "that no matter where we go, we carry home with us." The fleet jumped. Light swallowed them, and somewhere in the dark the Krell waited. But this time they would not find a single city or a lone messenger. They would find a web of worlds woven by hands that knew how to mend, how to share, how to love what others called broken. The stars watched, and for the first time in a long time they did not feel alone. Years passed, and the web held not by force but by choice. Worlds that once hid now spoke to each other. Traders carried seeds, not just goods. Teachers traveled between stars, sharing stories, not weapons. The Krell who remained were no longer hunters, but seekers. Some worked in the Virelian gardens. Others helped rebuild the worlds they once broke. They wore no chains, only the quiet weight of regret and the slow grace of healing. Claire and Lyra lived in a house built on the edge of the city, where crystal met earthwood, its walls lined with shelves of books and plants. Maya was no longer a child, but a young woman with Claire's steady hands and Lyra's quiet eyes. She tended the hybrid garden where earth tomatoes grew beside Virelian moon blossoms, their roots tangled in shared soil. The school they founded thrived not in a grand hall but in open courtyards where students sat on woven mats and learned to listen before they spoke. They studied broken things, how to mend them, how to honor them. A Zenthari boy with a stutter taught others the beauty of pauses. A human girl with a limp showed how to dance with uneven steps. A Silvari with a torn wing learned to fly again. Not like the others, but in her own way. Claire still walked the lower paths every evening, not to escape but to remember. She would stop at the old ledge and sometimes find a new gift. A carved leaf, a smooth stone, a tiny cup filled with rainwater. The givers never showed themselves, but she knew they were there. The ones who once felt unseen now saw and were seen. Lyra no longer whispered, she spoke in a voice soft but clear. And when she stood before the council, she was not just the matriarch's daughter, but a voice for the web. She helped write new laws, not about perfection, but about care, laws that said every life had value, even the crooked. even the quiet, even the broken. One spring a message came not from the rim, not from the core, but from deep within the human fleet. A ship had found something, near the ruins of Earth, not fire, not ash, but green, a single patch of grass growing through cracked concrete. They sent a sample sealed in light. Claire held the vial, her hands trembling. "It is real," Lyra said. They went. The journey was long but different. This time they did not flee. They returned the Wanderer. Now a museum ship flew beside them, its hull polished not to hide scars but to honor them. Maya came too, carrying seeds from the hybrid garden. Earth was quiet. The cities were bones, the oceans were calm. But life had returned, small, stubborn green things pushing through the dust birds with strange songs nested in broken towers. The air was clean sharp with the smell of rain and soil. They landed near what was once New Chicago. Claire walked, barefoot on the ground, her boots left prints in the dirt. She knelt and pressed her palm to the earth. It felt warm, alive. Maya planted the first seed, a mix of earth wheat and Varelian star blossom. Lyra sang to it. Not a ritual, but a lullaby. They stayed, for weeks, building a small outpost, not to reclaim but to remember. They taught the new humans how to listen to the land, how to grow without taking too much, how to live with scars. When they left the outpost open, a place for anyone to rest, to heal, to begin again. Back on Varelia, the city glowed not brighter but deeper. Its light now carried the warmth of many hands, many hearts. The matriarch stepped down not in weakness, but in trust. She named Lyra her successor, not because she was perfect, but because she knew how to hold broken things with love. Claire stood beside her, not as a guest, not as a stranger, but as partner, as equal. Lone evening. As the twin moons rose, they walked the paths with Maya, now leading her own students, a group of children from 3 different species, laughing as they tried to braid vines together. "Do you ever miss the old days?" Claire asked it. Lyra looked at her. The city, the children, the stars above. "No," she said, "the old days were lonely. This is home, and home was not a place without pain, but a place where pain was shared, where difference was not hidden, but woven into the whole like gold and cracked pottery, like roots in broken ground, like whispers that became songs." Years more passed. Claire's hair turned gray. Her steps slower, but her hands still worked in the soil. Lyra's voice grew softer, but her presence deeper. They sat often on the ledge watching the stars, not with fear, but with peace. Maya became a teacher, then a leader, then a legend in her own right. She carried the wooden bird in her pocket, always one wing shorter than the other. When Claire's time came, she lay in their garden, surrounded by those she loved. The air sweet with moon blossoms, her hand in Lyra's 3 fingers curled around hers tight. "You made me real," she whispered. "You made us all real," Lyra replied. Claire closed her eyes and smiled. After she was gone, Lyra did not hide. She walked the city every day. Her grief not a shadow, but a companion she planted, a tree where Claire's ashes were laid. Its leaves shimmered silver on one side, green on the other. The school grew. The web grew. The stories grew. Children learned of the human who asked, "Will you bond with me?" and changed a world, not with fire, but with seeing. And on quiet nights when the wind moved through the crystal spires, it carried a whisper, not of loss, but of love. A reminder that the most powerful thing in the universe is not perfection, but the courage to say, "I see you and I choose you." The stars watched, and for the first time in a long time, they did not feel alone.